Hello and welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Sean Zerillo and we're back today for another divisional preview breaking down the American League West. We're going to dive in. Joining me today is Grant Neefer from Scores and Odds. He'll be hopping on with us throughout the season. We're so excited to have him. Grant, how are you doing? Are you excited for the turn of MLB baseball?
Oh gosh, I am so excited. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's been as short as it has been since baseball was last on, but I mean, those last 5 months, 4 months, I don't even know how long. Feels like forever. Without baseball has just been it's been long, and I'm really looking forward to baseball season.
Rogers Hornsby quote: people ask me what I do in the winter when there's no baseball. I tell you what I do. I stare out the window and I wait for spring. One of my favorite quotes about the beautiful game we love. Before we jump in, though, to the AL West, we're going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. We've got a few previews already out. We got some more to come next week. Plus, our 2025 long shots and player props episodes are coming soon. And during the season, Payoff Pitch will be here in your feed every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday mornings. You don't want to miss any of our MLB betting coverage either. So make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure to give us that 5-star rating and review. Don't care what you put in the comment, so long as you leave us 5 stars. And with that, we're going to jump into the AL West. I'm going to start with the Houston Astros plus 150, who have kind of reigned over this division for quite a while. Their 2025 projected or listed win total, 87.5 wins. They finished with 88 last year. Pythagorean expectation of 90. I'm at 86 this year, so I lean slightly under. The public projection market, decent range between 83 and 87.5 wins. Just a different looking Astros team, though, than we've had in past years. Subtracted Kyle Tucker. Alex Bregman left via free agency. Justin Verlander. Yusei Kikuchi went to the Angels. I think he should have a pretty good season for them. Tried to supplement it with guys like Christian Walker, Isaac Paredes. Have like some weird holes. Brendan Rodgers slated as their opening day second baseman right now. Not like super high on this Astros team headed into 2025. Grant, give me your thoughts on the Astros, and do you think their reign of this division is ending?
Yeah, I think it's finally kind of come to an end. I mean, they've been great at player development, had so many guys come up through their farm system for years and years and years. Pitching has been great. Their hitting has been great. And now it's just kind of like starting to fall by the wayside. I mean, you look at their lineup, the core that they had is not really there. Tucker gone, Tuve old, Alvarez still great, but Bregman gone. Correa gone. Like, they've had so many guys come up through their farm system over the years in this for hitters, and now it's just kind of like you got Altuve that's old, and you got Alvarez. That's kind of it. The rest of the actual studs that they had in their lineup all gone. Yeah, bringing in Walker and Perez are both great guys to have in there, but Tucker is just a massive hit. And I know he was out for an extended amount of last season, but Tucker was legit one of the best young players in the league, and losing him is just massive. And you look at the rotation, losing Kikuchi, losing Verlander is going to be a pretty big hit. And you look at the rotation, Valdez is great, and all the other guys have some decent potential. They could be good, but potential isn't always there. And any one of these guys can have an off season. Any one of these guys could not be great. And we're just used to like having an absolute stud rotation, great bullpen, and absolutely fantastic hitting lineup. And we've seen the past 1 through 5 hitters just you don't want to mess with their 1 through 5 hitters. It's been that way for pretty much the last 7-8 years. And now it's kind of like their 1 through 5 hitters are good. They're not great. And then the bottom of their lineup is just awful. I mean, everyone or every betting market pretty much has the Astros as the favorite to win this division. I'd put them third right now.
Yeah, I'd agree. I have them second or third between the Rangers and Mariners. The public projections out there certainly have the Mariners like consensus ahead of them. The back of the lineup really weak. The bottom of the rotation is so much weaker than it has been in years past, and they just don't have the depth to like supplement losses from innings either. They seem to put guys on the IL every year too with Tommy John surgery, so they're also not able to keep their pitchers generally healthy. And you mentioned the player development stuff. I feel like they've always had good relievers in their bullpen, high stuff guys, very explosive arms. I'm not super confident in the relief group that they have there this year either. So it just seems like half the lineup isn't as strong as it used to be. Half the rotation, half the bullpen, all aren't as strong or as deep as they used to be. I've talked about this in the past couple of years. the Astros moving away from analytics, Jeff Lunau getting fired because of the scandal, the sign stealing trash can stuff, AJ Hinch going to Detroit, and then them taking Jeff Bagwell as like a decision maker in the front office and signing Josh Hader, signing a 34-year-old Christian Walker to play first base. Like, did it work out great when you sign an old first baseman last time with Jose Abreu? I don't know if Christian Walker's contract is going to age that much better. Maybe the first couple of years of it, but the back half of it, I don't think is going to be great. So yeah, I think this Astros team, the needle ultimately pointing down for this season. I don't know if there's any bets I really want to make on them. I'm kind of aligned with the win total. As I said, I lean under. Yordan Alvarez, home run leader and RBI leader, both at 25-1. I'm playing. He's DHing more this year. I still think Yordan's peak is 320 with 50 home runs. Hunter Brown was awesome last year after the first 6 weeks, had about a mid-twos ERA over his final 20 starts, and that included a start where he got lit up. And then Framber, wins leader at 40-1. He's actually leads the MLB in wins over the past 3 years. He's tied with Zach Wheeler over the past 4. He goes very deep into his starts and generates a high number of decisions. 40-1 was outrageous for Framber, wins leader. Even though I lean under on the Astros, he just gets into so many decisions. Grant, any props, player props, awards props, anything else on this team before we move on?
I mean, honestly, the Astros have got nothing. The only real bet I would lean is probably going to be their under on wins total. That's kind of it. I like that. That's my favorite bet on the Astros. But outside of that, I mean, I don't hate your Framber over on wins leader. Don't hate the Yordan RBI or home run leader. But I'm just kind of staying away from everything with the Astros. And I mean, I might be a little jaded because I'm a Mariners fan and I don't like the Astros, as most people don't over the last decade. But I'm just staying away for the most part because of that.
Before we get to your Mariners, I want to hear your thoughts on the Texas Rangers because they are the next team in terms of win total at 85.5. The Mariners down at 84.5, but also because your opinion on the Rangers will probably determine how you feel about the Mariners this season. Considering you're lower on the Astros, as am I. A lot of additions for the Rangers this offseason. Jock Peterson, Jake Berger. They completely overhauled their bullpen. 7 new names in there. We'll see how that group performs. Lost Andrew Heaney, Kirby Yates went to the Dodgers. Max Scherzer ended up leaving for the Blue Jays. Jose Leclerc, I believe, went to the Angels. And Carson Kelly, their backup catcher, went elsewhere. But they have more catcher depth this year. They signed Tucker Barnhart. They signed another guy, I believe, who's their actual backup catcher. Barnhart's going to be in AAA. But the projection market loves the Rangers this season. Pacoda is the highest on them, 90.4 wins, 50% to win a division, 80% to make the playoffs. The consensus projection, closer to 52% on them making the playoffs. Or I should say every projection has them making the playoffs at least 52% of the time. The consensus, though, closer to minus 175. I'm closer to minus 155. So I view this as a very safe playoff team with a lot of pitching depth, a lot more than they had last season. A fully primed Jacob deGrom. Let's see if he can give them more than 10 or 12 starts. But the lineup should also bounce back after 2 years ago. And Wyatt Langford, I think, is ready to take a step up into MVP territory. I teased this on our AL Central pod. I think Wyatt Langford's going 30-30 and entering the MVP conversation this year. Changed his swing mechanics in September, was the MLB Player of the Month in September. I think he had 8 homers and 7 steals. And if you look at the rest of the profile for Wyatt Langford, one of the fastest runners and one of the best base runners in the game, was one of the best defensive outfielders last year as well. The profile is very similar to a young Kyle Tucker. And I think Wyatt Langford poised for a massive season in 2025. I think Marcus Semien also, correlated to all these positive Astros bets. Marcus Semien at 75-1 to lead the league in runs could be an interesting bet as well. So Grant, give me your thoughts on the Rangers this season. The public projections like them between 82 and 90 wins, so a decent range of outcomes there. I align with their win total, but I like their divisional odds quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I really like their offseason acquisitions. Like revamping the bullpen. Jake Berger, I think, is probably one of the best gets, if anyone in this division. Like, he is young. He's very good. I think he's very underrated. Jock Peterson, great guy to have at DH. But Berger is really the main acquisition that I just absolutely love. And this team, I mean, they losing Heaney, a little bit of a hit. Scherzer, bit of a hit, although he's getting up there in age. Main thing is there's so many possible outcomes here with the Rangers. And a lot of that is kind of dependent on DeGrom. Like, DeGrom could potentially be the most valuable player in the league. And we don't know if we're getting 6, 16, 26. We have no idea how many starts he's going to end up making. He's one of those guys where he can entirely change, and especially in the playoffs. Like, you're talking about the chance of making the postseason. If they have DeGrom in the playoffs there, that immediately ups their odds drastically. Just having that, probably, if he comes back as he was, which, I mean, 3 starts in the end of the last season, he looked pretty darn good. So if he comes back as he was in the past, like, he's potentially up there with the best pitchers of all time and virtually unhittable when he's on. So DeGrom is kind of going to be the main guy that really decides things. And I mean, we don't know. Simeon, you mentioned him. Yeah, run leader. I like the odds on that. He's getting up there in age. And Marcus Simeon has been great in the past. He's been a guy that can hit for power at certain times in his career, but he's 34? And he's kind of seen a little bit of a decrease in power pretty much each of the last few seasons. He's played almost every single game in the last 4 seasons. Will that continue getting up there in age? You don't really know, but he's still probably an all-star caliber player at this point. But all the numbers are kind of dropping off. We don't know what that next drop-off is going to be for his age 34 season. So a bit of unknowns here. I think the ceiling for the Rangers is higher than any other team in this division, obviously by a wide margin. But it kind of all comes down to DeGrom's health. And I mean, at this point right now, they probably have the best batting in the division. Pitching, if DeGrom's healthy, they're second. If DeGrom's not healthy, they're probably third or fourth. Well, probably not fourth, probably third. So it's a spot that largely depends on how healthy a few of these guys can stay. And then the volatility with a lot of young guys, maybe they regress, maybe they have a much better season. You don't really know. So there's more unknowns with this team, which is why I think you get that massive range and projected win total of being a 500 team all the way to almost guaranteed in the playoffs with 90 wins. So there's a little bit of volatility here. And again, it comes down to health. But overall, I kind of have them and the Mariners as like kind of being a coin flip of winning this division.
Yeah, projected starts for DeGrom, 12 from Zips, 20 from ATC and the Bat, and then 26 from Oopsie Steamer and Fangraph. So wide range of outcomes for DeGrom. If he does miss time, Kumar Rocker, Jack Leiter, both actually seem to be doing some decent stuff in spring training. I like the pitching depth that the Rangers have, as I said, much more than they had going into last season. The lineup is starting to get a little bit old. Seager on the wrong side of 30, Semien nearing his mid-30s. But in terms of this season, Langford coming into his own, I think this is the time where Langford is priming. Their young guys are moving up as their old guys are still relevant. The Seattle Mariners plus 220 to win the American League West. They finished with 85 wins last year, underachieved by 4 games. Pythagorean expectation based on run differential was 89 wins, 84.5 this season. Public projections out there between 84.6 and 88. So I'm the low man at 82.8. I just do not like their offense, but not betting anything on this team. All of my bets in the AL West are tied to, as Grant mentioned, the upside of the Rangers, not the Rangers win total, but the Rangers to win the division, the Rangers to get a 1 seed at 4-1, and then also the Rangers to win the American League at 12-1. In terms of the Mariners, though, Dan Wilson, one of 4 new managers in baseball this season. If I use my projections, right, I would be betting the under to miss the playoffs, but taking the average, compositing it with the public projection out there, I basically align very neutrally on this team. There's a bunch of player props I like: Julio, Victor Robles for steals leader, couple Cy Young candidates on this team. I mean, the entire rotation is basically a Cy Young candidate, top to bottom. But Grant, I'm going to go let you head and take it away on your Seattle Mariners. Tell me about your thoughts on them heading into 2025.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not happy that they didn't really add too much in the offseason, but they didn't really lose a ton. And I mean, the main thing with this team, obviously, is pitching and pitching depth up to a certain point. Obviously, if Wu or Miller or Kirby or Gilbert or Castillo, any of them go down, then there's a pretty decent drop off to the next guy. I mean, they've had some serviceable guys come in the past, and they got some guys in their farm system, but regardless of what happens, which has kind of been the case for 4 or 5 years now. I mean, they're throwing out just Marco Gonzalez as their number 5, just drastic drop off a few years ago. So if they can, this is another one where health kind of becomes a decently important factor. If their rotation can stay healthy, then that's pretty big. And then with their hitting is just kind of underperformed almost every single year. I mean, it kind of seems like from my lifetime, Mariners, Seattle, kind of where hitting goes to die. But they got a little bit of depth. I mean, obviously they got Garver, they got Tellez, which they'll occasionally throw in there. Haniger seems past his prime. But their overall starting 9 is not actually terrible. Rayleigh looked pretty good last year. J-Rod obviously had a bad year last season from his perspective, and we don't have a huge sample size of just 3 years. But he's been a great hitter. I mean, it wasn't too long ago, 2 years ago, when he signed that massive contract that they're talking about. He's the most valuable contract in the entire major leagues for what they're paying him. Had an off year last year, but really brought it together in the second half of the season, was dealing with some injuries the earlier half of the season. A lot of his underlying numbers show that he should be fine. Like, there wasn't really much wrong with him, especially after he started to recover from that injury. So I think he's in for a big bounce back season, potentially going to be one of the most valuable hitters in the entire league. And he's just a great young player who we probably haven't even seen his full potential yet. Great bat speed. Everything looks good with him. And then Rosarina, kind of a guy that could be great, could not be great. I mean, he's good no matter what. But he always has the potential for a massive, massive season at any given time. Robles obviously has the speed, not really expecting much power out of him, but he can hit the ballpark occasionally. Good young core, and we'll see. I mean, maybe Cameron Young comes up and fills in for Moore, who's kind of the big hole in that hitting lineup. But overall, the main thing comes down to pitching. If their pitching can stay healthy, because 1 through 5, you don't see much better than this team right now. The 1 through 5 rotation is just absolutely incredible. How much that'll translate into the playoffs. Maybe we'll end up throwing Kirby a little bit out of the bullpen again. Who knows? Whatever it is, their pitching is just absolutely heads above every other team in this division. And I think that's why they're going to be in this likely until the very end, like they have in the last 3-4 years. And I think that between them and the Rangers, it's kind of a coin flip of who wins this division now. Mariners unlikely to end up with 95, 98 wins. Could the Rangers do that? Absolutely. Mariners probably not, but Rangers could also end up with 80 wins in the spot. So it's more of a volatility thing with the Rangers. Well, the Mariners, you're almost certainly above 500 and right in that playoff picture.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The Mariners have a very high floor. The Rangers have the higher ceiling. I don't know if I put the Astros ceiling even that much higher than what the Mariners. Like, I'd probably cap the Mariners and the Astros both closer to 90, 91 wins, where, as you said, the Rangers, if everything goes right, if DeGrom's fully healthy, if the lineup is back to health, that team wins 95 games, likely, where the Mariners are unlikely to win fewer than 85 games, what they did last year. The Astros, I could see being a 500 team if things fall apart. So, yeah, great analysis there, Grant. Just in terms of like player props I like for your Mariners, Logan Gilbert, AL Cy Young at 16-1. The highest strikeout minus walk rate in baseball last year in the second half. He also added potentially a new pitch in spring. I don't know if he's actually going to throw it. It might be a sinker, but he's just toying around with it. I don't think it's actually going to be something he implements. George Kirby, though, did add a cutter this spring, and it adds the potential to fix his issue against lefties who are sitting on fastballs high in the zone against him. I think he could generate a little bit more weak contact, neutralize some split issues that he might have. George Kirby could take a step up into Cy Young contention. He is amongst the best command in the game. He's going to have a super high floor every season. Victor Robles, steals leader at 25-1. Some major post-type potential for Robles. Was leading off for the Mariners after getting acquired last season. He was stealing bases at a 63 steal full season pace over 550 plate appearances, if he ends up being an actual guy who can carry over last year's success into this season, leads off for a full year, he's going to clear 50 steals for this Mariners team. And I've talked about on other shows, Ellie De La Cruz likely to regress in terms of his steals this season, in terms of adding power, in terms of a new manager in play. So I think Victor Robles, steals leader, 25-1, pretty fun bet. And then Julio Rodriguez rocking the Julio threads today. AL MVP 28-1. Hits leader 25-1. Also home run leader at 100-1. If you really want to get funky, Julio is going to hit 50 home runs one day. I maintain this. Still owns the record for most home runs in a round in the home run derby. Has one of the highest bat speeds in all of baseball. I think as he gets older, as he gets towards age 28, he's still in his young mid-20s. As he gets towards his age 28, 29 seasons, I really do think Julio is going to pop 45 or 50 home runs, especially maybe if he can get out of Seattle. But he is one of the most valuable players in the game, not only because of the hitting stats, also because he plays center field. And even though he dealt with injuries last year, had some bad luck early in the season, still striking out a little bit too much, his swing decision metrics, which is quantified by Seager, actually improved relative to his prior season. So his expected weighted on base average between 2023 and 2024, basically identical, both 344, 345, but his swing decision metrics actually improved. So some bad luck, some injury luck, bunch of stuff went wrong for Julio last year. I think he's primed for a monster year in 2025. So even though I'm not super high or not betting anything on the Mariners as a team, I do view an MVP candidate and multiple Cy Young candidates on this roster. Grant, any player props, anything else you like on this Mariners team before we get to the bottom end of this AL West?
I mean, not really. We'll get to more of those later.
Sounds good. Sacramento A's, I guess now, about 24-1 to win the AL West. Overachieved last season, but not based on the projections they had coming into the year, which viewed this as an over team. Their win total for the season, 71.5. They won 69 games last year. Pythagorean expectation of 68. I have this team winning 74 games this year, so I'm a little bit higher than the projection market, but I would have wanted like an over 71, maybe over 70.5 in order to bet the over. There are some projections, though, that think this team could be a sneaky wildcard contender. Fangraphs has them as high as 13% to make the playoffs. That's plus 675. You can take 9-1 or better on them. I think Jacob Wilson is a Rookie of the Year candidate at 15-1. He projects to have the highest wins above replacement total among AL rookies as of right now. And I think Brett Rooker is a home run leader contender as well at 30-1, just because the A's are moving to a much more offensive-friendly park. They were playing in Oakland previously, huge foul ground territory, lots of pop-ups get caught, eliminate you from at-bats early, tall, long walls, and not particularly warm weather, especially at night. You get those cooler temperatures. The ball doesn't really fly there. In Sacramento, the ball should be flying much more this season. It's also a smaller park, and Rooker had near a 17% barrel rate last season, which puts him amongst the major league leaders. So he had 41 homers on the road. The past couple of years, 28 at home. I think Rooker, the park switch, the power is legit. I think he could creep closer to 45 or 50 home runs this season if everything goes right. Grant, give me your thoughts on Brent Rooker, because I know you're a home run guy, whether you plan to be betting him this season in that new park, and what you think about this A's team in general for this year.
Yeah, so starting off with Rooker, he's one guy that I'm kind of looking into his home run total. I think it was at 33.5, 34.5, 32.5, right around in that range, and potentially taking the over. People don't realize how big of an edge it is getting out of that ballpark. I mean, Sacramento, I haven't looked into too much about it. I mean, from what I've seen, what you say kind of profiles as right around average, slightly above average. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So,
yes. If anything, better because of the heat. Like the dimensions, yes, but then you add in the heat factor, and it may play like 5 to 10% above league average. So it could be like a really.
No, I mean, they're going to have some games with legitimately 95, 105 degree weather. I mean, Sacramento, I spent a decent amount of time there. It gets hot. So we're going to have some nice parts of the season. Whereas over in Oakland, it's going to be 75, 80 on the warmest day of the year. Plus, you're right at sea level. You're right on the ocean. So just absolutely massive upgrade. And we've kind of seen this before with multiple different guys over in Oakland go on to a different team. I mean, Matt Olson not too long ago just having an absolutely massive year for the Braves with home runs. And I think we're going to see that here with Rooker. I mean, it's really simple. He's been one of the best, when you adjust for ballpark, been one of the best home run hitters in the entire league. And will he stay healthy? I assume so. Most projection systems are assuming that he's going to stay healthy. Being in a much, much better ballpark is going to be absolutely massive for him. I mean, it's a little tough playing in the same division with some good pitchers in there, but I'm not looking into that too much. He's in for, I think, a fairly big season. And I think Langeliers, I didn't look at his total for the year for home runs, but he's another guy that you could potentially look into. I mean, he's been good, but obviously hampered a little bit by the ballpark that he's playing in. But coming up through the minors, he was a guy with just massive amounts of power. And the A's, they're a team that always kind of finds a way to win. And obviously they had to just entirely gut their team so they could move over to Las Vegas. And it's been a weird few years, but I got a team that's kind of always in contention. Wilson potentially being great this year, has a good chance at Rookie of the Year. They're kind of solid, not great really anywhere outside of Rooker and you could say Langeliers, but they're good all the way up and down. Their starting rotation, not terrible, not great, but not terrible. I think a lot of them profile right around mid-4, low-4 ERA range, xFIP range throughout the course of the season. So they're not going to be a good rotation, but I don't hate the kind of sneaky potential wild card for this team here, just because they can put things together. I mean, Oakland has been always a team that has outdone their total expectations. And you look at their entire lineup, pitching is the only real big hole. Like everything else, catcher all the way through DH, you can't really find a bad hitter in that lineup. Everyone's kind of good enough. They have a little bit of depth on any given day. If a guy needs a day off, where they probably have more depth than a few of the other teams in this division. So I don't hate them as a potential wild card team at longer odds. But yeah, if we're looking at individual bets, I think Langeliers and Rook are taking their over for home runs on the season in the new ballpark. People are probably not factoring in that enough and factoring in the heat enough. So this is just a good spot to kind of buy low on a lot of these home run hitters and home run totals for these guys.
Yeah, as I just to reiterate, Rooker, 41 homers on the road, 28 at home in Oakland the past 2 seasons. I think that tells you a lot about the split and his difficulty of hitting them out in Oakland in those games. My projected total for Rooker this year is 35 and a half. I have him between 34.7 and 37 homers. So standard deviation of roughly 2 puts a projection between 31 and 39. You said his listed total was 33 and a half?
I think it was 33 and a half, 34 and a half.
I'd still go over on that. I mean, I'm at basically 36. And I think those projections also are not accounting for the adjustment that may be needed for this park switch to Sacramento. It's not the dimensions, it's the heat. And once we get into these games over the summer, I think that ball is really going to be flying there. Let's move on to the bottom of the division. Well, we're already at the bottom of the division, but let's see who's competing for the bottom of the division between the A's and the LA Angels, because I think the Angels, based on projections out there, could be a sneaky wildcard contender this year too. They added a lot of talent to this roster. It's a lot fewer like zeros on the roster than they had last year. They have a lot more competent major league players. Jorge Soler, Yusei Kikuchi, Kenley Jansen, Yohan Moncada, Tim Anderson, Travis d'Arnaud, and JD Davis, but also continuing to be very aggressive with their prospects. Christian Moore, who they took in the first round last year out of Tennessee, may make the opening day roster. I gave out Moore early at 35-1 for AL Rookie of the Year based on the projection that he may be on their opening day roster. If you only use the public projections out there, you could probably justify an over on their Angels. The average projection is 75.2, peak of 78. And again, they could be a wild card contender. I'm at 12% on the Angels to make the playoffs. Public market out there has them as high as plus 900. The BAT has the Angels near 20% to make the postseason this year. If the Astros fall off, could maybe see a path. The American League is definitely much more wide open than the National League. Grant, between the A's and the Angels, who do you view as the better bet to potentially make the playoffs? And then anything else you like on the Angels team?
I mean, yeah, between the A's and the Angels, I side with the A's.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at the overall lineups, they're pretty similar. So, I mean, there's not much stats behind this other than the fact that the Angels have been garbage for years. The A's are a better run organization, or a better coach, a better managed organization. Run organization is a whole different argument with how they've done things the last few years. But the Angels have just been kind of run terribly. And you got Moncada. He's a guy that has had so much potential for so many years. And we're 9 years into his career and we haven't seen that potential. So I don't know if it's going to happen. On paper, it's a good ad, but how much he will actually contribute, I don't know. Mike Trout is kind of the massive variable, which we'll get into one of my bets later. Mike Trout is potentially the best player in the league, best hitter in the league still. Like, he is potentially the best hitter in the league at this point if he can stay healthy. Will he still stay healthy is by far, it's just as big of a what if as DeGrom. Like, he has been playing no more than 80 games outside of one of the last, I think, 6 seasons. So health is just a massive issue for Trout. If he can stay healthy, then I think these guys can contend for a potential wild card spot and are almost certainly going to go over their win total. If he can't, that kind of changes things. And yes, they have some other good hitters in the lineup. Soler, coming over from San Francisco, should be in for a boost with the power we've seen in the past. I mean, you forget how much, like, did he have a bad season or was it just the location for him? Obviously changes things drastically being in a much better hitter's ballpark than San Francisco. Joe Adele has shown that he can hammer the ball, absolutely crush the ball. Will he actually hit the ball? We don't know. They've got some other guys in there that can do some damage. Adding Kikuchi into the lineup, if he plays like he did last year, is a great addition. If he's more like he was in the past, still a good addition. Hendricks getting up there in age. Who knows what he'll actually bring? A little bit of unknown there. Bringing Jansen into the bullpen. Joyce is obviously in there. They've got some decent bullpen arms. So they can have a better than expectation season. But again, most of that kind of comes down to Trout and if he stays healthy. But I don't hate a lot of their lineup. But in the past, I've not hated a lot of their lineup, and they've still managed to somehow, with Trout and Ohtani, not make the playoffs or even come close to making the playoffs. So it's kind of, will the talent beat out the incompetence from the ownership and managerial standpoint?
Trout going to turn 34 this season. The Angels moved him to right field in an effort to keep him healthy. He's been a bad defensive center fielder for quite a number of years, so that was well overdue. But 29, 82, 119, 36, and 53. Those are his games played since the 2020 season. 2020 was 53 out of the 60 regular season games. So it's really the past 4 years that he's been completely unable to stay healthy. Before that 2020 season, 134, 140, 114. Before that, he was healthy virtually every season of his career. So he had been missing 20, 30 games, 3 weeks a year, a month a year, and now he's missing half the season, 2/3 of the season. It's really been difficult for him to stay on the field. Hopefully, center field is a much more injurious position. Center fielders do get hurt more than other positions because they dive for more balls, etc. Hopefully, moving to right field can keep him a little bit healthier. We talked about Brent Rooker, just to mention, the likelihood that he stays healthy. Rooker is going to be DHing the entire season. Unless Rooker gets hit by a pitch or hurts himself running on the bases, it's very likely he makes it through a full season. So betting the over on a home run total like that, a little bit more confident than playing, props involving Mike Trout, but Trout's numbers still may be a little bit too low, and we'll get to those in a moment. But first, with Major League Baseball right around the corner, now is the perfect time to get yourself an Action Pro account. Get real-time pick alerts from myself and other action experts, including access to Sean Kerner's strikeout prop projections and more. Right now, new subscribers can get $20 off a year of Action Pro at actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code POD20. That's promo code POD20 for $20 off an entire year to be covered for March Madness, NBA, the upcoming baseball season, next NFL and college football seasons, and more. Don't wait. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro. Right now, use promo code POD20 for $20 off a year of Action Pro. And with that, we're going to wrap up and give out our favorite win total, stat leader, and best bets for this division. Grant, your favorite team future in the AL West, I'd assume it's your Seattle Mariners.
It is, in fact, my Seattle Mariners. And I mean, you can find some pretty drastic disparities between odds between different sites. DK has them at plus 250. Really like that. I don't know if I'd go as low as plus 200 on some other sites like FanDuel. But you can generally get 225 and above, which is where I would probably hit it at. And plus 250, I think, offers a lot of value. I mean, both me and you are clearly projecting the Astros to be the worst of the main three. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
there's always an outside chance that the Angels or the A's could end up winning the division. But if you're getting the Rangers at plus 225 and the Mariners at plus 250, and we're offering a near zero chance that the Angels or the A's end up winning the division, not that they might not make a wild card, but chances of them winning division are fairly slim. So you're getting the two better teams, the two more likely teams to win the division than the Astros at over 3-1 odds. Then that's just absolutely fantastic there. I mean, we're projecting the projected chance of the Mariners winning the division at plus 250 is under 30%. And I think that this is essentially a 3-team race. And I think they're probably number one or number two. I mean, I don't mind the Rangers. I'm sure you're going to go with the Rangers. So I went with the Mariners. I think hitting both of them, hoping one of them does, and way more than likely, I think one of them is going to win the division. It's a pretty decent ROI taking one of them. And I don't hate them to win the AL pennant. I don't hate them to win the World Series. I think they're 25-1, 28-1, depending on where you're at. For the World Series, they're plus 1,200, plus 1,300 to win the AL pennant. I mean, once they actually get into the playoffs, having that starting rotation of Gilbert, Castillo, or Kirby, any one of which could actually win the Cy Young this year, plus a pretty decent bullpen. Doesn't have quite the same depth as it has in the past, but the main guys for this bullpen are still very good. The hitting lineup, like we said, J-Rod, off season last year, could be in for a much bigger and should be in for a much bigger season this year. And if Young comes up, he has a decent season, and they don't really have as many holes. They don't have a lot of great hitters, but they don't have too many holes in this lineup.
All of my bets on the AL West on terms of teams, and I love the way Grant played that with the Mariners extending out to the pennant. If you're playing any team in the American League, if you're betting any of them to win the division, I think you should be betting pennant odds on that team too, essentially laddering it up, because the American League is super wide open compared to the National League. In fact, I'd even recommend, if you're betting the Mariners, to bet their round one bye odds as well. That's what I'm betting for the Texas Rangers. I bet the Rangers to win the division, to make the playoffs, to get the round one bye at 4-1, and then also to win the AL pennant at 12-1. I think you could take any of those AL East or AL West teams that you think will win the division and ladder them up accordingly from their divisional odds all the way to the AL pennant odds. A little bit skeptical about betting against the Dodgers outright in the World Series market this year. I'd rather just have my money by the time we get there. The Dodgers should be phenomenally talented come October this season. I think a way better team than they had coming into last year. It's why I'm tending to lean towards more the AL pennant stuff as opposed to the World Series stuff. But like the way Grant stacked that up, putting the division top and then the AL pennant edition as well. As I said, Rangers to make the playoffs for me at minus 110. I like to minus 135. Their round one bye, you could play to plus 350 to win the AL pennant at 900 or better. And then their AL West odds, I would bet to plus 150. Let's talk about some of our favorite player props in this division. Grant already mentioned a few of the players he may be targeting throughout the show, but Julio Rodriguez, Mike Trout, Jake Berger, your three home run prop guys you're targeting. Grant, go ahead and lay those out for me.
So yeah, first obviously J-Rod. Like, we know that he had an absolutely horrific season by his standard last year, and it was largely because he was injured for the majority of the first half of the season, kind of playing through it. We look at his pre versus post All-Star break numbers, and I think he had 10 home runs post All-Star break in 43 games and 10 home runs pre All-Star break and close to 100. And so he's got one of the best swings in the game. He's got some of the most power in the game. We've seen in the home run derby. 25.5 is too low here for a home run number for him. Minus 114 at FanDuel, slight juice to the over. He is just far too good and far too strong to have it this low. I think he's in for a big bounce back season. So I really like his over. The interesting one here is Mike Trout, 23 and a half home runs. We look at his actual numbers over the last 5 seasons since 2020. And he's essentially been on a 46 home run pace over those seasons. So it's kind of, is he going to play more than 90 games? And if you want, you can bet on that. I like his over on home runs. I think he plays more than 90 games. But I think the much better bet here is Mike Trout, home run leader, plus 5,000, like 50 to 1. We look at the over, guys. If he plays a full season, like if we were guaranteed 162 games from him, then he would be plus 300. Like it's that simple. Oh, he had 40 home runs in 119 games in 2022. He was on a 36 home run pace 2 years ago. Last year, obviously 29 game sample size, not great, but 10 home runs in that 29 game sample size. He would have hit 56, or he was on pace for 56 during that year. Like he has been absolutely hammering the ball as he's gotten older. Obviously, a little bit of his speed has gone by the wayside, although he still stole 6 bases last year. It's just the injury bug that has been getting him. So if we can somehow get a full season of him, then that's absolutely massive. Will that likely happen? No, but we're getting 51 odds for him to be the home run leader. So it's not that much of a stretch to have him potentially play 130, 140 games. There's a chance Judge ends up getting injured. Ohtani had kind of an out of his mind season last year. And can we reasonably expect him to hit 50 again this year? Probably not. Can he? Absolutely. But probably won't. And you got guys like Alonso, Schwarber. They'll most likely end up in the 40 to 45 home run range. So Trout can absolutely get 45 in 130, 140 games. He had 40 in 119 a few years ago. So the power is there, and the power seems to be getting kind of better with age with him. It's just the injury stuff. And really, when you're betting home run leader, you're betting on him missing less than 20 games, 25 games.
So I just wanted to shout out my projections on those guys. I have Julio at 29 home runs, range of 27 to 32. So like the over there. Trout between 27 and 33, average of 29 as well. Also would lean over. And then I'll save my final projection for your third. But I really like the over on the guy you've saved for your best bet. Yordan Alvarez, his projections this year have him between 36 and 38 home runs. As I've said, I think he can step up closer to 50 home run territory. The power is there. All the StatCast metrics are there. Viewed as virtually the unanimous best hitter in baseball by StatCast metrics, even ahead of Judge in some metrics. I think Yordan is primed for a peak season at some point in the next 2 or 3 years. Not going to be the one to miss out. 25 to 1, great numbers. They were closer to 15 to 1 in both markets last year. And then if I was placing one Cy Young bet, Logan Gilbert, AL Cy Young at 16 to 1, I think he's the guy. As I mentioned, the strikeout minus walk rate last year. We've developed so many new fancy new age pitching stats to try to better capture and better predict what pitchers can be, who they are going forward, Stuff Plus, et cetera, et cetera. Every year they run the correlations to see which have the best correlation to future success. Every year strikeout minus walk rate continues to win out. We've not been able to develop a better metric for predicting future pitcher performance than strikeout minus walk rate. Logan Gilbert was your MLB leader in the second half last year. I think he's primed. It's kind of the method we've been using to find Cy Youngs in past seasons too. Skubal, even though he didn't throw a ton of innings, ranked among the strikeout minus walk leaders in 2023, headed into 2024. I think Gilbert is the best pitcher in the American League headed into this season. I know that may be a controversial take, but I probably would have him edging out Skubal ever so slightly. Grant, going to throw it back to you for your final home run bet. This is a player I project between 29 and 34 home runs, an average of 31 and a half. You're betting his home run total at over 24 and a half. I love this over.
Yeah, so Jake Berger, line's currently sitting at 25 and a half, or 24 and a half rather, which is just absolutely silly in my opinion. So, I mean, obviously you can go off the last few year stats. He had 29 and 34 the last 2 years. Last year, he was playing with a little bit of an injury for the first half of the season. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you can definitely tell the difference. So first half of the season, 10 home runs in 73 games. Second half of the season, 19 home runs in 64 games. This guy has a ton of pop. It's a little bit of a ballpark upgrade. Obviously, Texas isn't great for hitting. It's not terrible. Miami's just terrible for hitting. So he's going to a much better ballpark, in my opinion, for hitting. And this guy is still young. This is only his third full season in the league. He's only got 344 games under his belt, and he's just been absolutely fantastic when he's been healthy. Barrel rate sitting around 14.5% so far in his career. This guy is legit going to be one of the better hitters or home run hitters in the league. And we are getting just such a low line on him, 24.5. If you really want to go with a long shot, 80-1 odds for him to lead the majors in home runs. If he keeps up that second half of the year pace, he could absolutely be in it. And 80-1 is just such long shot odds. He's got a ton of power, and we might not even have seen the best of him yet. But if you want to go safe bet, 24.5, in my opinion. If he can stay healthy, far too low. And like you said, every single projection system for him has him well above that or above that at least. I don't think there's a single one under 28. So 24.5, if you assume a few home run standard deviation, still got that as a 60, 70% likely outcome.
Yeah, Steamer has him at 28. That's the low. Oopsie, which factors in more batted ball data, more swing speed data. Tend to trust that one a little bit more for hitters going forward. Has him at 34. Hitters also come into their peak power in their age 28 and 29 seasons. Jake Berger, 28 years, 10 months old. I think this is his peak season, likely in 2025. This is his peak season. So if you're assuming it's his peak season, he hit 29 last year. He's getting into the 30s this year. 24.5 seems far, far, far too low considering where his projections are. He hit 34 a couple of years ago as well. He was in a much worse park, as Grant pointed out last year. Grant, any other thoughts on any other teams and players in the AL West before we get out of here?
No. Let's just it all with this division. I feel like more than a lot of other ones, it comes down to health, and we'll see how that plays out.
That'll do it for this episode of Payoff Pitch. Make sure to download the free award-winning Action Network app to follow all of our action experts so you can track your own picks. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to catch all of our division previews here on Payoff Pitch. For Grant Neefer, I'm Sean Zerillo. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.